Many people want to become stars in the music world, and there's more ways than ever before to realize that dream. But what does it really take to get to the top and stay there? Paterson's own Fetty Wap made music history as the first act to have 4 hits simultaneously on Billboard's top 10 hot rap song chart. By the time his first song was out, he'd already recorded several albums. His work ethic and authenticity made the most of his management team's strategies, says his manager, Danny Su Griffin.
It was coming from his heart. It was definitely coming from his heart. He was being himself, and he had it in him.
Also coming from the heart is his new artist, Shamyra. She's won on the Apollo stage and is now communicating her latest message through her music video, Reaching for the Stars.
I try to be as real as I possibly can. I feel like sometimes in music we don't really have that. We just have what is, I guess, popping for the trend. And I feel like as long as I stay true to myself, I can't be compared to anyone.
Whether it's the phenomenal creativity and career of Drake or the groundbreaking success of Cardi B that took many by surprise, the big names all share a strong work ethic and stick to a career strategy. But it begins even before that, says Danny Su.
For artists to get to the top, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication. If you could see it, you could achieve it. But you have to believe in yourself first before you want anybody else to believe in you.
Have we thrown away the rules, or is there still a formula for success? Let's find out what our panel has to say. Shamyra is with us. He's a marketing expert and the founder of the Global Spin Awards. Sean, great to have you with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Also with us is Shamyra Krishnamurthy. She's a music journalist. She's interviewed and written about some of the biggest names in hip-hop. Shamyra, great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Also with us is Danny Su Griffin. He's an independent marketing expert with RGF and AMG, and he's also Fetty Wap's manager along with other artists. Danny, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Lisa.
Thank you. Shamyra, you know so many people want to get into the business. So many people want to be stars. I'm sure you get asked this question a lot as well. Are there certain characteristics that some of the big names have that they share in common, no matter what type of music genre they're in, no matter male or female?
You know what's great about 2018 is there's no one way to get in the room. You know, before it was this idea that you wait in line, sort of like a nightclub, right? You stand behind the velvet rope, someone ushers you in, and you come into the room. But now artists, because of the internet, social media, platforms like SoundCloud, there's really no one way to make it in the music industry. You can have millions of fans around the world as a totally independent artist, or you can go kind of the more traditional route of signing to a major label, kind of going through their artist development process and sort of going through those kind of old school steps to making it in the industry. So what's great about the industry now is there's really no one way, and it's really about every artist has a great chance of making it.
So many more avenues of access.
Certainly, and you know, every year there's a new avenue that gets added. I mean, a few years ago we didn't have Spotify and Tidal and Apple Music, and now because of all of the streaming providers, there are people who are literally streaming stars. You may have never heard of them. They don't get played on the radio. They're not on television, but to their millions of fans, they know every word at every show.
That's what's so incredible. Shamyra, as a marketing expert, you've been with some of the biggest names in the business, worked alongside them, created campaigns for them, and also work with DJs from around the country too. First, let's talk about marketing. What is marketing? Because we always hear people say marketing is so important.
Marketing is extremely important. You know, I can go back to and I'm dating myself, but the early days of Bad Boy Records. You know, we had a shoestring budget back in those days. We relied heavily on the streets and the grassroots way of getting the word out and getting our artists to the community. We were the ones out there with the picket signs, the hand to hand, and marketing is really touching your audience and creating a word of mouth buzz and getting people talking about you. It doesn't matter. Marketing is marketing. It doesn't matter if you're selling a soft drink or if it's a new artist trying to reach their constituents and gain a fan base. I think there's so many artists coming up. You know, like someone you just said, they're relying so heavily on the internet. And like she said, and it's 100% true, there is no one way to market yourself. But you can't forget about your base. You can't forget about your streets, and you go one block at a time, get one fan at a time, and those become real fans.
And the personal connection, you think, is more important is just as important in addition to the whole digital presence?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's no different than, you know, in the early days of the industry, before there was internet. You really had to get out and touch people. When you see some of the candidates out there trying to get elected, it doesn't matter if they have, you know, the internet now and television and big
They're
budget.
still knocking on doors, and person. That's a
Yeah.
great point. And the Bad Boy Street team was famous.
Absolutely.
As a reporter starting out, going out, they were at everything. You know, they were always there, very
We
visible
were
in a big
everywhere.
group.
It didn't matter what the event was, we were there.
I was an intern for him, so promotion. So I remember,
That's
right?
awesome.
It was literally snipes,
That's a good
people
team.
standing outside of like the event, the after party with the signs, and that was the way you reached your constituents, just like Prez was saying.
And that's also kind of how you knew something was popping. But Danny, in terms of the streets and the one-to-one connection, I've been on the streets with Paterson, with you and Fetty and the whole team, and covering it and reporting on what you were doing there. That's a big part of your whole philosophy.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yes, that was actually our blueprint. You know what I mean? Hitting the streets real hard, like, and getting out, seeing these fans. Even when they wasn't fans, we were still mingling with them. You know, I use that as a blueprint for everything that I do in terms of marketing, especially hip hop. You know what I mean? Because hip hop is like, it's what you feel. You know what I mean? If you feel it and you get out there and you touch these people, then they start feeling you. Then they become fans. So when we was moving up, we was doing all the billboards and all that, but we was carrying them. We was doing the sweatshirts and everything, and dating back to the time when you probably was on, Bad Boy. We was actually doing a movement out of Staten Island, and that was our ground presence. You know, doing a lot of hand-to-hand combat. And then I brought that back when we did Fetty, and it worked.
But it never gets old. Touching the people.
The human
never gets
connection,
old.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of
dating someone in real life and a dating app, right? It's the same
Right,
thing. Like, it's this idea of touching people kind of in this tangible way. I think what's kind of interesting, though, like if you're an artist, you know, in the middle of Japan or in the middle of South Africa, like how do you sort of reach the world? I think a lot of times now younger artists are like, instead of going kind of hand to hand, block to block, they just go online, and with a few clicks, you're literally reaching millions of people. So it's a weird balance, right? It's this idea of, do you take the time stomping, you know, actually stomping the pavement, meeting one person by one person, or send out a tweet and you could reach millions of people.
But are those millions of people, Danny, that you're reaching with, you know, one Instagram post or one tweet, are those going to be real fans that are actually going to download the music and actually support the artist?
Yes, in our case, though, they are real fans, because when we hit the pavement, we actually showing what we're doing, you know, online, on Twitter, on Instagram, because that was a big part of our success, Twitter and Instagram, you know what I mean, and Facebook. So what we was doing on ground, people was amazed, like, they everywhere. They in every hood, you know what I mean? So we put it and it go national, and we had people reaching out to us from the UK, looking at our movement and what we was doing, and they kind of was started doing it over there too. So when we went to the UK, people was actually like, yo, we love what you guys are doing. That's how we became fans, you know, and that's.
But the point is, Danny, y'all put the work in, and you just used the internet as a medium to show the world what you was doing.
Exactly.
So many artists nowadays are taking the easy way out, because there are artists right now, I don't want to mention them, but the first record
ahead.
that they ever
Please mention
recorded.
them.
Nah, seriously, the first record that they ever recorded, you know, by luck, it blew.
Right.
And, you know, they didn't have a real fan base. They never put the work in. So that's why you see so many artists who don't have longevity. They're here today and they're literally gone tomorrow, as opposed to many of the artists who came before who had to, you know, beg, you know, DJ Clue and
get all the family members and everybody from the block and everybody they grew up with and say, you need to come out and support me. Right.
Those were real fans.
Those are the real kernel of it.
And they have, you know, extended careers. Many of the artists who are blowing up overnight, you know, they're going just as quick.
Here today, gone tomorrow. We're going to talk about putting the work in when we come back. This is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers.
Somebody who looks like Aretha Franklin in 2018, there is no way that Aretha Franklin, with that beautiful voice and so many hits that she had in her, would even get a record contract today.
Let's talk about a career that we just came to learn a lot more about with the passing of Aretha Franklin, the Queen of Soul, this amazing career that she had. As I was reading the obituaries and just the tributes to her, she had one of the things, she was a perfectionist. They said she would rent the hotel ballroom next to where she was performing for a concert so she could rehearse everything with the band and with the orchestra ahead of time. She went through ups and downs with her career. Prez, when you look at her, what do you see in terms of lessons we can learn? Talk about longevity and putting the work in.
Well, that's the first thing I was going to say is longevity. You know, it's kind of what we were discussing earlier. This is a woman who came to prominence in the 60s. She had a career who spanned over 50 years.
And yet everybody knew, every generation knows her.
Every generation knows
Everyone.
her. But in the beginnings, there was something, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss this in more detail, the artist development that was put in to the early days artists, really understanding who you are as an artist and who your fan base is. Who are you singing to? What are you talking about? Who are you trying to reach? And I think that the artists back in the days, they really took the time, and the labels, you know, they actually used to have artist development departments.
Yes.
And those departments have long gone, you know, in 2018, they don't even exist. But that's the reason that so many of these artists, you know, have been able to survive over time.
So I mean, when you look at Aretha, because she survived a lot of different trends, like times people kind of, after soul music, you know, but before disco was coming in, they kind of wrote her off, and she went through like 3 or 4 periods like that in her entire career. How did she do that?
I think Aretha is a great example of just pure talent, right? With that voice, I think it really surpasses trends. And you see so many artists now kind of jumping the wave, or what's the current vibe. So when everyone else moves left, they don't know what to do. They flounder. And I think someone like Aretha, doesn't matter if it was in the 60s or, you know, 5 years ago, she still had that amazing voice. So I think that always kind of served her well. And the catalog, I mean, no matter what, those songs that she's sang, either her own songs or covers she's done, have really stood the test of time. I mean, I think moving forward, we're going to always see them in movies and commercials. Like, they'll continue to soundtrack people's lives. And I think that's a way to really kind of touch people versus just being that one-hit wonder. We may never hear from you again. This woman has a body of work, and I think that really is a testament to her talent.
Danny, tell us about you're a strong believer in artist development.
Yes.
And working with the artists. You take a little bit of a different approach, or quite a bit of a different approach than a lot of other people. Tell us, what was the strategy you used to get Fetty so hot? Because that one year he's had many hits, but he had one year in particular recently where there were like 5 big songs on the Billboard charts.
What took us there was more so like buying into the culture of what we was doing. You know what I mean? So Fetty and us, you know, our whole team, we was actually from Paterson. So it was a culture thing moving around. Everybody was into it. So when you get into the whole project and the person, it's a little different. That's where artist development come in at. So we developing his sound, and he's developing his sound. We're supporting every direction he go. So if he go far left, that it might be far left now, but when you sit back and look at it, it's not far left. That's where he's going at. So we supported that. You know what I mean? So that's what made Fetty whole. So when you see him singing, he could sing, and people say, oh, he can't sing without auto-tunes. I was like, auto-tunes wasn't even on that. And they was like, get out of here, that's his real voice? I was like, yes. And he also could rap. And then he became a performer. So we developed that by just nurturing his style, seeing what he's doing, what makes him tick. You know, we support it. You know what I mean? We gave him the foundation. If he fall, we pick him up, we brush him off. You know what I mean? We kind of make the fall soft instead of hard.
Sean Prez, you said that Aretha Franklin, one of the greatest of the greats, and may she rest in peace, would never be signed today. With that kind of voice, that kind of passion, the look, the talent, why do you say that?
Oh, it's a fact. I mean, you know, just speaking, put my record label exec hat on now, you know, these days, the labels and the execs at the labels, they're taking the easy way out. They're looking at Spotify and seeing who's streaming. They're seeing what record is blowing up in Atlanta. They're seeing, you know, what's going on in a different town. But they're not paying attention anymore and just signing artists based off pure talent. you know, and ultimately, pure talent is what will give you the longevity. Somebody who looks like Aretha Franklin in 2018, there is no way that Aretha Franklin, with that beautiful voice and so many hits that she had in her, would even get a record contract today. Now, she could technically put herself out independently because the platforms are there, but she would have to have a massive online hit before a record label would take a chance on that look.
Is it also because of the image, because of the look? Everything is, the look is so much.
Absolutely.
What about that, Shamyra?
I mean, there are labels who are signing people now because they're Instagram influencers, and maybe they have one song or they did a cover of someone else's song, threw it on Instagram or YouTube, it has millions of views, all of a sudden this person has a record deal. And it's
Look at
Yeah.
the Catch Me Outside girl.
Yeah,
I
Bad
don't know
Baby.
that she was ever a rapper before that. You know,
She was on the Dr. Phil show.
Exactly.
But I think she's, we're also in an interesting place now of the cult of personality, right? And it's not just hip hop. I mean, we see
It's
this
everything.
always
Everything.
different.
even
Everything.
Donald Trump, right? Like
Right.
all the way from the White House, kind of going down. It's this idea of personality and people really attaching to that. And what's crazy about, Bad Baby, I believe she has like 4 Billboard hits, which actually outnumbers people who have might been working on
Because
their
they measure
craft
the streaming,
for
right.
years and years and years. So it's a different place now.
Danny, what about that? What about like Aretha?
Aretha, she was special. I mean, nowadays for Aretha to get a deal, you have to have your whole team behind her. Far as
that
like,
might not be enough.
yeah.
I mean, I
but-
think it goes back to metrics. Like Prez was saying, they're going to look at your Spotify numbers, your SoundCloud numbers, your Instagram followers. Yeah, if, Aretha 2.0 is really, popping on the gram, she might get a deal. But if she has 100 followers, probably not.
So there's no shortcuts to the hard work. No matter how fast you hit the.
I think
There's no
are.
replacement for hard work.
No replacement.
There
Okay,
are
replacement.
people who
Yeah, there's
jumped the
shortcuts.
line. There are
Right.
people who absolutely jumped the line. They're just not here tomorrow.
Or they may not. It may be harder for them because they're not going to be prepared, like you said, right?
Right.
Like you're at the front of the line now. Okay, now what? So I
Right.
definitely don't want us to say it's all hard work because I think we know really hardworking
Exactly.
people
That
who
don't-
never make it.
right,
There's
exactly.
luck. There's who connections. Sometimes just a time. It's a moment in time where lightning kind of strikes, but. At the end of the day, the work will speak for itself. So I think if you have that kind of in your arsenal, you're in a good place.
But I
Then you're
would
ready.
say, know your audience. I cannot say, and I've said this multiple times, know who you're speaking to. Know your constituents. Know who your fan base is and talk to them. There's a man literally at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue right now in the White House.
Yes.
Who knows how to talk to his fan base?
Knows how to talk to his fan base.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how many lies you catch him in. It doesn't matter how much
Controversy.
just controversy
Yes.
and hypocrisy that
In
this
terms
man,
of marketing, you just forget politics aside. In terms of marketing, it's a brilliant marketing strategy.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes,
absolutely.
yeah.
His fan base,
He knows what to
speaks
say to
them.
push the button.
Absolutely.
Knows what to say to
and
make
they
that
stand by
connection.
him. It doesn't matter what he does.
Right. And
Yeah,
they-
real
they-
fans will stand by you
Yeah,
no
they
matter
loyal.
what you do.
No matter what.
Definitely loyal.
Yeah, so you got to know who you as an artist. You can make records over here, over there, but who are you and who are you speaking to?
Yes. And
Right,
the key
and
to
know you-
that, when you do get your time off, you got to learn how to live again. Because
Absolutely.
you jump into this arena, it's just so many fans and they loving you. You forget how to live again.
As a human being,
yes.
as a private person.
As a private person. So
Yeah.
when the wave do come down, just live a little. I tell my artists that all the time. Have fun. Go do something. It's like, I don't know what to do because they so used to performing.
They're so used to working and
hard.
everything like that.
I'm just
Well,
like,
you got to make a life at some point. But I want to thank all of you for being with us. This was an amazing show. Sean Prez, thanks so
Thanks for
much for
having
joining
us.
us.
Yep.
Shamyra Krishnamurthy, great to have you on again. Appreciate it. And Danny Su Griffin, wonderful to have you here.
Thanks,
Thank you
Lisa.
so much. And thank you for watching this episode of Street Soldiers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.